What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NFL Strategy Show. I've got to say, that is a good intro, because when that drops, you know shit's about to go down. What's going on? I'm Dave Loughran at Laffy_D on Twitter. With me, Adam Scherer at ShipMyMoney DFS on the Twitters. Not with us today, but with us in spirit. And by in spirit, I mean producing the show and working the screen share is Josh Engleman. I'm going to throw his handle out there because I like him. At Josh Engleman. Follow him if you're not doing so already. Producing the show, handling all of that. He was away all week, didn't play NFL, so he would have been, in essence, useless to us today. But it was his idea to take off the show. He hates hearing that. Don't worry, I got you, man. Look, you might bust some balls around here, but I wouldn't. I even told Josh yesterday, and it took a lot out of me to say this. I told him that on that first hour of the 4-hour show, I say, we got about 250 likes. Maybe you are the king of likes, because we'd probably have like 600-700 right now. The man just badgers people and it works.
Yeah, he's really good at that one specific, very weird thing.
How'd your week go? How you doing, man?
Pretty good. Tournaments, kind of went shitty as usual, but did really well in cash games. So came out ahead. Happy with how it went. How'd you do?
Man, on a 13 game slate, on any slate, it is so difficult to these tournaments, man. I mean, the difficulty level is absurd, and I think probably worth for a minute you just talking about what made you make a transition, and I guess I kind of alluded to it, to playing more cash than you were before, because I know you've been pretty smart about catering your game to what works, from 3-max and stuff to MME, where you were having a lot of success, then back to some 3-max stuff and single entry, and then playing a ton more cash games. What is it that helps you guide the decision making, and what right now has you playing a lot more cash and, still tournaments, but less tournaments than usual?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. One of them just kind of being actually sitting and thinking through my goals. It's something that I talked about a bit in one of our NBA content piece that'll be posted shortly on the site. But like actually catering contests that you're playing to what your goals are. And when I started out, I was always a tournament player because that's the quickest way to build up a bankroll. That's the quickest way to have some substantial money. But I kind of thought about it more, and it was like I got to a point where I have enough money to be comfortable. I have a bankroll, I have all that. Why am I still playing these massive variance things where taking on a bunch of downside risk, whereas I can just like grind out money, and I have a big enough bankroll, I can get enough money in play where I'm making substantial money by playing, cash games and kind of grinding it out and trying to make more consistent profit, as opposed to, having 3 days a year where I make a ton of money and then, losing every other day basically. So it was kind of just a personal preference thing, just kind of trying to align more with what my goals are going forward. I think that cash games they're obviously tougher now than they used to be, but I still think that especially at high stakes, they're still beatable. So that's there too. And then the smaller field tournaments, just there's less variance again. So a lot of it was just personal preference, wanting to win more often, and for a variety of reasons.
We're happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up if you're just joining us. And hey, if you like what we do here, you think along the way we've helped you out, hit that subscribe button. Maybe we've changed your thought process on the way you view DFS. Maybe Josh or Adam or Alex or one of these guys has helped you win some money along the way, and you like what we do. You could hate us too, but if you like our work, you just click subscribe. And if you hate it down the road, well, just unsubscribe. But for now, help us get to that 50K mark. We'll show up more in your browse feature on the recommended feed, and you'll always know when we're live. Even if you don't hit the notification bell, if you go on the home screen or the homepage, you'll see that red dot to the left whenever we're live, which is all the time. So many ways to check out the shows, and hopefully join us as a subscriber and part of the Awesemo family. So Adam, let's jump into this. We're going to hit on the Millie Maker. We can maybe go to the slant if we have time as well, but the winning lineup, and Josh is going to I don't have the same capacity as Josh does with Fantasy Country, knowing how to do all the crazy nonsense with it. I'm pretty basic. I'm a layman when it comes to this, but the winner was 40 Fortner. And did you see that for the second straight week, Derek Carr and David Montgomery were in the winning Millie Maker lineup?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it. Like it didn't dawn on me, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. So is it the last 3 weeks we have David Carr, Baker Mayfield, and David Carr, or Derek
Carr?
Derek Carr, yeah.
It might be. And 2 weeks it's been Derrick Henry because he was in this one.
Right. Yeah. So, pretty crazy. I know like Drew Lock and Mitch Trubisky gave you a chance yesterday too. So, pretty. Yesterday's outcomes kind of reminded me of how tournaments were a couple of years ago, and it was a big talking point for us at the beginning of this year when you kept having like Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, these guys just putting up such monster games that you couldn't really get there with the cheap quarterbacks. Now it kind of seems like it's back to normal where you're seeing some value quarterbacks come through because they score enough points that being able to roster good players elsewhere helps out.
Hey, no question. And I've got to bring this up. This is something now that we've seen twice in the last 3 weeks, Adam, and it's really remarkable. And I'm not even kidding. When it comes to large field tournaments, it's legitimately making me think about how I want to build lineups into next season. Another game where running back, wide receiver, no quarterback, no run back, or I'm sorry, Tyler Eifert, but that's hardly considered. No running back, no quarterback, but you had Derrick Henry, you had AJ Brown from the same team. They combined for what, 67 points or so. That is remarkable that we saw it with Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen just a couple weeks back, and then we saw it with Derrick Henry and AJ Brown this week. I don't know last week if we saw some of that as well. I feel like we may have, but this is becoming a trend, or at least a short-term trend that maybe it deserves us paying a little bit more attention to it.
And I noticed some good players also were doing it with Kansas City yesterday, playing both of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and then using a cheaper quarterback than Mahomes. I think that it's kind of just one of those things where it's not, and it goes back to the conversations we've had before on correlation. Having a team that has some negative correlation, it doesn't mean your lineup's going to do poorly. It doesn't change a whole lot. It's just a matter of, if you are going to build a million lineups over the course of NFL seasons, it's just a slight difference in terms of your, expected value. So it's not something that it's not like shocking when it ends up working out. It's just that as far as like for me building my lineups, I'm going to just not do it in most situations. And even looking at this lineup, like this lineup won, but like if you make AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, for example, just because that's the first guy that I thought of, it doesn't really change anything. Like you still, I mean, I guess the price point's different, but the point being, like, there's enough wide receivers that score well. Like, you didn't have to have this. He also has the Montgomery and Robinson pairing.
That's the crate, but yeah, come on.
Yeah.
He has two in the same lineup. Two
Yeah,
pairings
and I
in the
mean,
same lineup with no quarterback.
yeah, and also these were two teams that were expected to score a lot of points. Not so much the Bears, according to the Vegas total. I personally thought they were going to do well because Houston can't defend. But the Tennessee game had one of the highest totals on the slate, so it's you understand how they got there, and I don't think it's like a huge knock. Like it's I think kind of more of a personal preference thing. Like, if you're willing to take on a little bit of negative correlation in order to get access to teams like that, then fine. For me personally, I think I can build good enough lineups without doing that I'm going to keep doing so, and I don't think it really limits my chances of winning.
I agree with you, but I keep coming to one conclusion, or at least this train of thought that keeps hitting me, right? And you can respond, you can give me your opinion on this. I feel like there are not a lot of teams, but there are a handful of teams out there, Adam, where there are 2 or 3 players that are really getting the large majority. Like, the offense is so concentrated between a few players. Minnesota's a pretty good example, right? I think, to be fair, another good example is Tennessee. Yes, Corey Davis is one of them, but Corey Davis, AJ Brown, Derrick Henry, boom. Especially when you have Jonnu Smith out, and whatever, he's fine, but the guy's he's blocking most of the time anyway. I could go over a bunch of teams that have a similar setup. If that's the case, and then it's not unreasonable to think from week to week that you could see a lot of those Derrick Henry 30-point games, AJ Brown 25-point games, Adam Thielen 25-point game, Dalvin Cook 25-point game, just based on the way things play out. Hey, if we're going to throw, it's going to go to this guy. If we're going to throw in the red zone, it's likely going to go to him. But when we're not throwing, it's almost certainly going to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it is important to think, kind of going into every slate too, to just go through and say, okay, these are my normal rules, but are there places that I want to make exceptions? Like I know one spot we had talked about it previously was the week that Jamal Williams was like the number 1 point per dollar running back and Devontae Adams was the number 1 point per dollar receiver, that you could just easily play them both together. Using the Kansas City example, that's the spot that I thought made sense because Tyreek Hill is one of the highest upside receivers. Travis Kelce was the best tight end, and there's no reason they can't both have a big game. And then you don't need Mahomes with them because he was the most expensive quarterback on the slate. So like a situation like that, I think made sense. And to your point, if you can kind of pinpoint exactly where production is going to come from in an offense, it does at least lower the risk of you just kind of being wrong on how that team gets their points. So if I were to go that route, I would look more towards teams like that. I think for me, it's more when I make that decision on which teams I'm going to do it with, the biggest thing for me ends up being pricing. Like, do I think that a receiver and a running back from the same team are both like top 5 plays at their position, in which case I'm more likely to just use them both.
Sure. This guy put 44, the winner in the Millie Maker, played 3 Derrick Henry lineups out of his 4 lineups and 3 AJ Brown. So that's things are, I don't even know how to make of this. Like, let's take a look at the second place lineup from M. Benson. 200K profit for him. He played 1 lineup. So before we even get into any more of this, 40 Fortner that won had 4 lineups. Second place had 1 lineup, single entry. Third place had 3. Fourth place had 1. Fifth place had 6. Sixth had 37. Then 7 and 1 and 10. So of the top 10, 1 of them had more than 10 entries, and 8 of them had 7 or fewer. Adam, that's insane.
Yeah, the first 150 maxer came in 10th.
Okay, yeah, Forsaken. Okay, did I say top 10? Maybe I meant the top. It would have been the top 9. Okay,
I don't know. I wasn't correcting you because that would imply that I was listening to what you had said.
That's a funny guy. Funny guy. I don't know why we even pay you. What do you think though about the notion that M. Benson comes in here? The cumulative ownership here was 107.7, which isn't anything wild, but also Derek Carr for the second straight week, sub 1% ownership. David Montgomery again, Derrick Henry again, Chad Hansen, Curtis Samuel, T.Y. Hilton, which that's a story for another day. The guy is dead, and now 3 weeks in a row, he's just crushing. Travis Kelce, Nelson Aguilar, Cowboys defense. Really similar lineup to what we saw the winner throw in there, outside of like Chad Hansen and Curtis Samuel type of plays and T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid lineup. You had the Raider stack with the Indianapolis run back. Hansen was a reasonable value play. You got a little bit more correlation with Hansen and David Montgomery in the same game. Samuel, I think, was a fine value. Paying up for Kelce was, I think, a good idea yesterday. There was a pretty good chance that Kelce was going to just like break the slate at the tight end position. It didn't really work out because Mike Gesicki had such a big game and was relatively close to Kelce. But I think this is a really solid lineup.
All right, so we always each week take a look at the boom or bust. It's a relatively short show here, but it's fun to see what went right and what went wrong. We do the value report, the bust report, the chalk report. Ownership wise, Derrick Henry was the highest owned player. Now, did you anticipate that being the case? Did you think he would be the highest owned player on the slate at 8,700? And I guess the fact that Dalvin Cook was in a tough matchup was going to funnel more ownership to Henry, but still the highest owned in the Millie Maker, north of 26%.
I thought he would be up there. I didn't think he'd be the highest owned. The reason being that there were a lot of good point per dollar values at running back yesterday. Not to say that they were great plays, that their range of outcomes was super appealing, but there was just a lot of guys that were going to show up in optimals. So I thought that Henry would be one of the highest owned. I didn't think that he would actually end up being first.
Outside of Derrick Henry, you had Devontae Adams, 25%. He just continued every single week. Like, it just doesn't even matter at this point. Aaron Jones, colossal disappointment again. And I don't know, Adam, he was 24%. At this point, we have to accept that Aaron Jones is strictly a boomer bust option. And I'm not really sure we can continue to pay almost $8,000 for him going forward. I just don't see it. He had as many carries as Jamal Williams this week.
Yeah, I was really surprised by his ownership. It came in higher than we had projected, but we even had him projected at 16%, which is relatively high.
Yeah,
It
I didn't think he'd come close to 25% at that salary.
Yeah, it seemed like a really weird week to be getting to Aaron Jones when you had so many other running back options and you had Devontae Adams to pay for. I think it is interesting that looking at the exposures of a few good max entry players, Alex, the highest out of the group I'm looking at 4.7%.
Wow. 4.7% Aaron Jones.
Yep.
And no one else really had much at all, and he didn't have much at all either.
Yeah, out of the group I'm looking at, which is Alex, two others, and myself, it's Alex at 4.7, then 4, then 2, then 0.
Wow. So 25, that's such a bizarre number to look at for Aaron Jones, third highest. Him and Devontae Adams were two. Well, by the way, there's another team. There's another team we talk about, the AJ Brown and the Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen. Like if someone did take down a tournament with Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, it wouldn't shock me. But given the way Jamal Williams is getting worked in all season long, now it would surprise me. And I'm just not interested. The fact that those are the second and third highest owned players on the entire slate in a large field contest like the Millie Maker is pretty wild. And then you had David Montgomery, 23% ownership on Montgomery. He came through again, Adam, and even with $1,000 increase off of last week, he's in the first and second. I haven't even looked down the list, but the first and second place finishers in the Millie Maker both had David Montgomery. I guess he's good now. Are we saying he's good now?
No. So I added the Chipotle brothers in, and neither of them have more than 4.7% Aaron Jones either. So pretty clearly, it seems like the max entry guys took a stand against Aaron Jones. As far as Montgomery goes, he was a good play. He was facing Houston. Houston's defense is atrocious. Montgomery's getting pass game work without Cohen. Like it all made sense. Of course, he ran for an 80-yard touchdown on his first carry of the game, which sort of ensured that he was going to get there. Not much of a sweat on that one, but yeah, it's kind of just, I think as his price tag goes up, he's someone that will be pretty easy to get away from because he's still not on a particularly good offense. He's still not particularly efficient, but he does, get opportunities, obviously, which is all you can really ask for.
You had J.D. McKissick rounding out the top 5 in ownership. He was at 20%, followed by Keenan Allen, Corey Davis, Seahawks defense, Brashad Perriman, Aaron Rodgers, and then the Cowboys defense. One guy that I had was well over the field on was Gio Bernard, Adam, and it just so happened that Zach Taylor decided not to play him. Like despite playing him, and every week comes into a matchup against the Dallas Cowboys and just hardly plays him at all. And at that point, I just threw my hands up in the air after like 20 minutes, 30 minutes into the slate. I'm looking at this thinking, what is it? Trayvon Williams is out there getting all the work while Gio watches from the bench, despite the fact that when Joe Mixon was healthy, Gio Bernard got more work than we wanted him to. Those are the type of frustrating things. If Gio Bernard was just terrible, then I'd be like, okay, you know what? Bad pick. Gio Bernard sucks. But it's a lot more frustrating when they don't even get the opportunity against a team like Dallas, whether the game script is favorable, neutral, or negative.
Yeah, I was with you. I rostered a lot of Bernard as well. He just seemed like a really easy pivot to the guys in that price range that we're getting a lot.
Like McKissick, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I rostered McKissick too, but
Me too.
Bernard fumbled early in the game and then just never came back. And it was funny because I think it was Mike Clay tweeted that it was like Bernard's first fumble in like his last 800 carries or something. So a really weird guy for the coaching staff to just be like, oh, you fumbled, you're not allowed to play anymore. But that's apparently how it worked out. And it's frustrating because Cincinnati's run game actually was decent. So decent, pretty good chance that we would have gotten a good game out of Bernard.
Yeah, because Dallas run defense is terrible. Right. So things like that happen. It's frustrating. What were some of your highest exposures yesterday, just looking at it and how many of them played out in tournaments?
So I ended up being really high on the Green Bay game. Partially, I played a little bit chalkier yesterday than I intended. I played a lot of my I kind of leaned toward top projected lineups, not entirely intentionally, but I had like 69% Devontae Adams. I had 37% Aaron Rodgers. That led to running it back with a lot of Marvin Jones, which didn't work out. Had a lot of McKissick, Perriman, Washington, Duke, Hawkinson, Ronald Jones, I think was an interesting one. So yeah, I mean, kind of mixed results for me at the top end. Green Bay being my highest stack obviously went well, but then a lot of the filler pieces didn't.
Leah says Laffy is a Wentz truther. Well, apparently you don't watch my shows. If by truther you mean I've been calling for the Eagles to bench him since like week 7, then yes, I am a truther. And I
Yeah,
was
I was
ahead
going
of
to
the
say
curve.
that's the exact opposite of what your stance has been all season.
The furthest thing was I pro Wentz in 2017 and even 2018? Yeah, of course, everybody was, because he was really good and he would have won the MVP had he not got hurt. I wanted us to lose yesterday. I wanted us to lose,
So
but
did I.
But I'm serious though. Why would I like? First of all, was I happy to see Jalen Hurts run for over 100 yards? Was I happy to see them finally figure out a competent game plan? See, Leah just set me off, but this is actually relevant. This is relevant, so finally I can justify my rants. Doug Peterson decided that he'd finally simplify the playbook once he benched Wentz, and for that reason, I feel bad for Wentz, because he treated Wentz like he was Aaron Rodgers, right? Like he was prime Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, when everyone else knew that he wasn't. Asking him to do everything where he wasn't capable of doing it. You can blame some of it on the offensive line. You can blame some of it on the pass catchers, but a lot of it goes to Wentz and a lot of it goes to Doug Peterson. Now you put Jalen Hurts in and you clearly see Doug's like, well, this guy must not be very good. Adam, they run a ton of screens. They run a ton of design runs. A lot of options that let him get the ball out of his hand early or just pick up the few yards that he needed and take what he could get. Now, he was smart with the football, threw it away when he needed to, avoided bad sacks, and they ended up running for a ton of yards on a Saints team that is second best in run defense on the season. But what do you make of Jalen Hurts coming off of that game where they beat a very, very good Saints team?
Yeah, I think that, especially from a DFS standpoint, he's going to be useful. And he's someone that I talked about with Greg a lot yesterday. I ended up not rostering him because he ended up not really being necessary in builds, but he was only, 5,100. And if he stays cheap, getting a quarterback with that kind of rushing ability and that kind of like designed rushing ability, like it's going to be there. It gives you a high floor, it gives you a high ceiling. It lets you be creative in the rest of your lineup because you don't necessarily have to heavily stack with him because he's going to do a lot of the work with his legs. It's going to open the door, I think, for a lot of utility on future slates potentially. Maybe he'll probably get more attention paid to him now that we've seen him play a game and do well, but definitely someone that I'm looking to in these last few weeks of the DFS season as probably a useful player just because of the rushing ability.
For sure. Now, Josh, you just pulled it up. What was his ownership on the Millie Maker? Jalen Hurts?
2.7.
Like 1%.
What was he?
2.7.
2.7%. Okay. And he finished with, how many fantasy points did he finish with?
23.28.
At 5,100.
Yeah.
So, Adam, I always listen to like the last 20 or so minutes of your show leading into the 10 o'clock deeper dive of the 4 o'clock hour we do, or 4 o'clock marathon we do. And I had heard you talking about Jalen Hurts and essentially saying, which I think is the only right opinion. And Greg Ehrenberg said the same thing in the Live Before Lock. If you think he's going to do well, you probably just want him to do well because nobody really knows. And if you think he's going to do terribly, you just want him to play poorly and you have a hunch, but no one really knows. And I think both you and Greg made similar points in that we don't know anything about him. What we do know is that he was 5,100 and that he can use his legs to make plays. And if you are running a mobile quarterback that can use his legs to make plays at 5,100, we at least need to bring you into the conversation at projected 1 or 2% ownership.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I personally didn't end up using him yesterday because I just went, different routes with my lineups. But I didn't think there was any question that at that price tag and that ownership, he should at least be someone that you're thinking about because like uncertainty in tournaments is good. And also the one thing you were certain about with Hurts is that he's going to run. So even if he has a bad game, he's probably getting you like 6 or 7 points just from his running alone. That's something that, I think as a kind of a broader point, it goes back to, looking for rushing quarterbacks. And there haven't really been many cheap quarterbacks that run this year. The only guys that run are kind of at the top with like Kyler Murray and to a lesser extent, Josh Allen, for example. But getting that really cheap quarterback in Hurts, like he was someone that I actually played around with in cash builds because of the rushing ability. I ended up just paying up a quarterback because there was no reason not to. But thinking about the skill set there, I thought was kind of the most important thing, more so than what you think of Jalen Hurts as a quarterback.
You were right. The only thing that sucks about that is you're almost always gonna have to run this guy naked at this point. I mean, there's
I think like that or you like using Goddard, I think would have made sense.
Would have been fine, yeah.
Yeah, like the tight end position was so weak. Like, why not Goddard?
Yeah, that's cool. It's a good point, and I'm glad. Yeah, there's a few spots where I didn't know what to do with tight end, so I just like when I was doing some of these 3 or 5 max, where I just threw in the one with my quarterback, even if he wasn't good. Right. Like for example, in some Seahawks stacks, why not just go out there and run out Will Dissly, which is what I did. He was cheap. He finished with 10 at 2,900. That was fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. It just sucks that that was it Hollister scored that touchdown on his only target of the game.
Maybe I don't know. I know they had a lot of random touchdowns because I was sweating my Wilson, Lockett, Metcalf stacks in best ball, and I know the touchdowns were not going to Metcalf and Lockett.
Yeah, I don't know who it was. I just know that it wasn't the guy that I wanted. Oh, no, you know who it was? I'm sorry. It wasn't a tight end. It was Freddie Swain.
Okay, so I think David Moore had one too.
Yeah, which sucks because I had a lot of – I always hate when this happens. I had a lot of Wilson to Metcalf or Wilson to Lockett stacks, and I felt – and I had some Will Dissly who was fine, but I felt really good about that, especially given I thought they should have been even higher owned, just given what we've seen teams do to that Jets secondary, completely inferior. And it's more frustrating when you see a team like Seattle rip off 40 points in a 40-3 victory, and Russell Wilson throws 3 touchdowns and gets pulled early, and you know that you had it right. You know that you were, or 4 touchdowns he threw. You knew that you had it right looking at the score. You just didn't get any of those players because who's playing Freddie Swain and David Moore?
Yeah, the Seahawks were really frustrating because like if the only like question mark about Wilson was, are they going to score their points through the air? And then, so like if you told me before the slate that Russell Wilson's going to get 4 passing touchdowns, that kind of alleviates the only concern that I had. And then the fact that they just spread it around so much was pretty frustrating. And even Chris Carson, kind of had a mediocre game. I think he had like 18 or 19 DraftKings points. So it was pretty disappointing to not really get any super useful DFS results from a team that scored 40 points in an obviously really, really good spot.
So of the highest owned players, like we said, Henry smashed, just another 200-yard game, been excellent. Adams was solid. Jones stunk. Montgomery once again was integral in winning these tournaments. McKissick had 10. Whatever. Keenan Allen had 20. You can live with that. Corey Davis stunk. Seahawks, we don't need to get into that. Brashad Perriman, not very good. That was interesting to me that Perriman was 17%. And the Jamison Crowder news came out. Didn't that come out after lock?
It came out after the 1 p.m. lock.
That's what I mean. Yeah. But I anticipated that because we saw the reports earlier in the week that Jamison Crowder could be active, but he would be used in an emergency capacity. But that wasn't the case either. So Brashad Perriman, Aaron Rodgers was good. He had 30. Cowboys defense, 18. We saw them winning tournaments. But then when you look at the guys that had the highest fantasy point totals, Adam, Henry finished number 1. He was also the highest owned, which I feel like you don't see that all that much. But Jonathan Taylor was second. Miles Sanders was 0.6% owned, had 32.6 fantasy points, and now has 3 runs of 70+ yards on the year.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised he was that low. I'm not saying I thought he was like a great play. Like I didn't have any. I just mean in that like he's a running back with explosive ability. I figured he'd
right.
get like 2 or 3% or something. So that
boomer bust, totally boomer bust.
Yeah. Hopefully Jalen Hurts, makes things a little bit better for him. That would be really nice for me and whatever Millie Maker best balls I have advancing. I know I need that. But yeah, it's good to see. Obviously the upside for Sanders is still there.
So you had Sanders coming in at 0.6% ownership. I wonder if he was in any tournament winning lineups or anything towards the top. Josh, I don't know if that's something you can pull up. I believe it is, but it'd be interesting to see if Sanders was up there. Another one, Tua Tagovailoa. I talked a lot about him and wanting to finally see something from him because I didn't feel great about him at all. I'm happy to be wrong about this. Adam, he was 1% with 31 fantasy points. Rodgers, 31 at 16%. Kelsey was 13%. He was great again. Allen Robinson, 6%. Calvin Ridley, 7%. You had, though, look at this. You had 7 players with 30-plus fantasy points. If you include Ridley at 29.4, you had 8. That was a lot of big games yesterday, but I guess the 13-game slate puts it into perspective.
Yeah, a lot of big games, but also ownership going to several of them. I mean, you had Rodgers as the most popular quarterback. Kelsey is, I think one of the most popular tight ends. Robinson was one that I thought was interesting. He's someone that a lot of the 150 maxers I'm looking at came in over the field. I thought it was kind of interesting that his ownership was as low as it was when you're talking about a receiver as good as Robinson going up against a Houston secondary that had basically nobody to defend him. So was happy to see him come through with a big game.
So, okay. That's interesting. Josh just gave me the numbers on Miles Sanders. The best Miles Sanders lineup was 13th. And I guess when you're less than 1% owned, it kind of makes sense because you have to get so much else right. And there's hardly any other people. 13th place. Let me pull this up because now he's telling me it's a full out Dolphin stack. Now I just have to see this. What's the name? Was it the E-Moron 3254?
Yeah.
I swear that's his name. It was. Okay. Well, fitting. Okay. Is that
that is a Dolphin stack.
What's that?
That is a Dolphins stack.
Oh my God. With Dolphins defense against Kansas City. He had, hold on a second.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like maybe turn Devontae Parker or AJ Brown into Tyreek Hill and like win some money.
He had no run back, but 4 Dolphins. And
what a team.
Wow. And he won, what did he profit?
Like 7,500.
Almost $8,000. So
good day for them.
Guys, this is why we do this show. You can start making lineups like that and cash.
Much better day than I had.
He had Bowden at
that.
What?
Bowden, I think, was actually a reasonable play if you were like stacking Kansas City or stacking the Dolphins. I wouldn't have stacked him with every other piece of the Dolphins, but
what I mean is he had Bowden sandwiched in between Parker and Mike Gesicki,
right?
Which is pretty remarkable. And Bowden ended up. Look, if you fully stacked him, that's one thing. By the way, he finished in 13th with a 0 from Devontae Parker.
Yeah, he nailed the. I mean, he had Jonathan Taylor, he had Miles Sanders.
Did Sammy Watkins do anything? He had 7. I was trying to see it. So how much was Devontae Parker?
6,100.
He was 6,100. So what would the comparable pivots have been to Devontae Parker? Because my assumption here is that he finished how far out of first place? He finished with 212. He was 10 points out of first place with a 0.
Yeah, I mean there was nobody on Kansas City in that price range, but like the first thing I thought would be go from AJ Brown to Tyreek Hill and then drop Parker to like one of those 5K receivers.
For sure. But I'm saying, okay, look at this. Like Parker, here you go. Ronald Jones, who was his flex? Was his flex a wide receiver?
Jonathan Taylor.
Okay, so never mind. I was going to say Ronald Jones. What's that?
I said, yeah, you can't change him.
No, Ronald. Well, no, I was going to say if it was a receiver, you put the receiver in there.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Devontae slot. Yeah. And then you put like a Ronald Jones in there. But
Robbie Anderson, $100 more expensive, 17.7 fantasy.
Oh, there it is.
Did he have $100?
Yeah, he had 200.
So he would have won $1 million. Look, obviously, we're just having fun here. Hindsight's 2020. But the reason Adam might even bring something like this up is because he could have swapped off Adams, like you were saying, and still had a full-out Dolphins stack.
What the hell? The Dolphins were 2,800. He could have just rostered Washington instead.
Yeah, that's another one. No, he apparently thought that the Dolphins were going to rout Kansas City. But if that's the case, why wouldn't he run the run? Like, why wouldn't he? I don't know.
I assumed the Dolphins were like 2K, and that's why they were in there. But they were more expensive than the Cowboys. They were the same price as Washington.
That's so crazy. And then just somehow ended up with Miles Sanders as well.
Yeah, he picked very, very good plays outside of Devontae Parker.
Look how much blue there is on the screen. That can't be right. It's a 13-game slate, Adam. It's a 13-game slate, and 5 of his 9 spots were Dolphins, and he finished 13th in a Millie Maker. Do you realize how absurd that is?
Yes, I do. It kind of pisses me off.
Oh my God. Wow. I can't get past that. It's one of the craziest things I've ever seen, but we see it all the time. Like Laz Gets Fit last year was running 2 pass catchers against this defense and had a $250,000 day.
This Dolphin stack is so ridiculous that we haven't even touched on. It's another Derrick Henry, AJ Brown pairing.
Yeah, there you go. Another one. But the fact that he got a 0 from Devontae Parker. Now, granted, when did Devontae Parker go out?
I don't remember. I think it was fairly early. Like, I think it was before Miami started piling up points.
Right. So we'd have to obviously go back and look. And like if Bowden and Gesicki started racking up targets after Devontae Parker went down, then of course there's a connection there. But.
Right. I do know that there was one pass in the end zone that kind of went through. It was a tough catch, but it went through Parker's hands. I randomly had some really good stacks that had Devontae Parker, like not even of that game. So I was kind of paying attention to him. So I know he did have at least one touchdown opportunity.
Eric says Sanders broke the Saints' no 100-yard rusher streak, didn't he? I think that streak wasn't it like 80 games or something? It was something insane. But here's the crazy thing. Yeah, they'd gone, I think, you guys can look it up in chat if you don't mind and tell me if you can find it, because it's an insane streak that they didn't allow a 100-yard rusher. The Eagles had 200-yard rushers yesterday, which is
Hurts, right?
Pretty crazy for such a bad team. How many, if you guys find that out, how many games? I feel like it was a lot of games that they went without allowing a rusher. And Josh, while I read this ridiculous $1 promo, I don't even know how we do this. And I'm not like, that's not a sales pitch. I'm dead serious. We're giving away everything for NBA all the way through the 29th of December for $1. Josh, if you want to pull up the worst lineups, that segment we started last week, we can close the show with that. We got a lot of positive feedback. Everyone saying that they wanted to see that again. And I thought that was pretty fun.
We kind of just did it with the 13th.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say the same thing. You got to me first, or you got to it first. Guys, for $1, if you use the promo code Caruso, I know we can never make the promo codes easy, can we? Josh, we can never make the promo codes easy. You know? Adam, we never make them easy.
The best part was doing the NBA show with Greg yesterday. He does this read like before the Lakers game. And then he's like, all right, the only Lakers news we have is Alex Caruso not playing.
Alex Baker, number 1 ranked DFS player. You know him as Awesemo, co-founder of Awesemo.com. Everyone says that he looks like Caruso from the Lakers. So that's why we're using the promo code. But for those of you that don't know that, you're like, why are we using Caruso? It doesn't matter. It's CARUSO. Gets you everything, all access to NBA for $1. That's all of the preseason content. But here's the best part. That would be good enough, right? Like everything for $1, you get to check it out. But we're also including the first week, the entire first week of the regular season in there. So projections, ownership, top boom bust tool, all of the premium articles that these guys spend a ton of time on, the lineup builder, everything else, like all of our tools, everything included. So if you were to do it today, go to awesemo.com/join for $1, use the promo code Caruso. You get everything for the preseason, but that doesn't even end once the season starts. You get the full first week, all of our product, all of our NBA all access for that single $1 that you spent today using the promo code Caruso at checkout. How's NBA preseason going? I know you're doing a bunch of shows and putting in the work on that.
Yeah, it's going well. I mean, not for me personally financially, but the work is going well. It's actually, I think, been a little bit cleaner and smoother this year than normal. We've gotten teams actually being upfront about what they plan on doing, which has been, at least nice from a work standpoint.
Awesome. So let's do this, Josh. Are we ready to look at the worst lineups?
Yeah, we got it.
All right. I'm very excited about this. It's up on the screen, backed by popular demand. Adam, is this the Millie Maker, last place in the Millie?
Yeah, it's third from the bottom. There was one lineup that was clearly like a placeholder that just walked itself into some points, probably.
But you think this is a real lineup here?
And then there was one before that had a bunch of zeros: Cooks, Julio Jones. So this is the only one that like very clearly had a roster of legitimate players.
So this guy finished.
Which one is it? I'm trying to find it.
He finished Chris Guerra.
Okay, so the non-stacked Daniel Jones?
Yes.
Correct.
He finished in 205,650th place. Josh, pull that down a little bit so we can see the whole thing on the screen. There you go.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones, we're a bit delayed over here. Daniel Jones, 0.8%, 4 fantasy points. Aaron Jones, 24%, 9 fantasy points. Ezekiel Elliott, 5% owned, 7.9. Deebo Samuel, 1%, 0.9. Now, to be fair, Deebo Samuel did get hurt, right? I believe he got hurt.
Yep.
Daniel
Jones.
Jones.
First possession, I think.
Yeah, Daniel Jones. But still, I mean, this lineup is Terry McLaurin. The biggest issue I have here is the Travis Fulgham. Like Doug Peterson clearly doesn't want to use him anymore. Yeah. And it's a shame, but it's the case. He's using Alshon Jeffrey, ancient dinosaur. Hayden Hurst, Corey Davis, Panthers D. So you look at this lineup, Adam, what would you grade it before the slate started? Okay, so 1 through 10. 1 is the worst you could give a lineup. 10 is the best, assuming everyone's healthy and you're going into a Millie Maker. What would you grade that lineup?
Like a 1? There's no core. The only, I think, objectively bad play was Fulgham. Everyone else was defensible. But
the construction is equally as concerning, right, as a Fulgham play when you're talking about correlation.
Right, exactly. Like, so there was the dead spot in Fulgham. There's pretty questionable plays in some other spots, but guys you could at least make the case for. But then, essentially no correlation. You don't have Daniel Jones with anybody. Daniel Jones doesn't run enough for that to work. Like, why wouldn't you just use Jalen Hurts if you're going with like the cheap quarterback naked stack? I mean, he at least would have had the Fulgham pairing, I guess. So yeah, I mean, the correlation's not there. The only correlation that shows up at all is Deebo and McLaurin.
That's
which
what
is,
I was thinking too,
kind of, it's fine, but it's not like anything you're getting excited about. Yeah, it's like individually, I think the plays were sort of guys that weren't priorities for me, but that certainly filtered their way into some lineups for the most part. But no like great plays, none of the main guys on the slate, and no correlation, and Travis Fulgham.
Do we have anything else, Josh? Any other lineups that are just egregious that we can end the show with? Because this is always pretty fun.
Another Julio 0 is not going to get us there.
And Kevin, yes, Carr was in the winning Millie Maker lineup again, along with David Montgomery, along with no quarterback with running back and wide receiver from the same team. The winner, for those of you guys tuning in late, had wide receiver, running back from the same team twice. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, there's one EJ Sooners, 42.4 fantasy points, a Jags onslaught.
Oh God, pull this up.
It's on the screen now. EJ Sooners, 42.4 fantasy points.
No run back.
Not ideal.
No run back.
No.
Yeah, so I mean, 2 general rules, I think. 1, don't run Mike Glennon onslaughts ever. And 2, if you are gonna massively stack a team, like use somebody from the other team, maybe.
Right. If you're using 4 from this. All right, so Adam, let's do it again. And in chat, by the way, be objective. Grade this lineup with us. What would you give this lineup on a 1 to 10? Is there anything that is done right here, Adam? And you have to do it in increments. If there's something done right and you say, all right, then you have to give it at least a 1.5 or a 2. Is there anything here that you can say is redeeming in quality about this lineup?
So I think this lineup's better than the one we did before because it doesn't have any Travis Fulgham type guys that were just not
and wild correlation.
Right. And this isn't a great correlation in that it's a little overdone, but you at least have a bunch of guys that are playing on a team that is in a game with a 52 total. So that would make it, I guess, like a 2 or a 3 at least. Like you have that going. Would have gotten more points if you had used like AJ Brown or Derrick Henry or Corey Davis on the other side. But it is a step up, I think, from the Daniel Jones lineup.
So, but I would say this too. When you're looking at a lineup like this, we had a question from Sean McCarthy that says, why do you need a run back? Just curious. So like genuinely inquisitive question. And that's good. That's what this show is for. You don't, Adam, always need one. Like we've seen things take it down, especially in smaller field tournaments. But when it comes to something like this, the general idea, and you can expand upon this, is when you're stacking a team, especially with that many players, the assumption is that they're going to put up a ton of points. And if they're going to put up a ton of points, the opposing team is going to need to try and do something to keep pace and not get blown out, which generally results in them throwing the football. That's why we talk about the correlation with the run back.
Yeah, it's not so much that you need it. It's just when you think about like basically a DFS lineup is like trying to hit 9 legs of a parlay basically.
Right.
And using positive correlation makes it so that if legs 1 through 3 of your parlay hit, it's more likely that leg 4 does as well. So it just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit more likely for all of those plays to come together at the same time, and kind of increase your chances. It's not a big enough deal that like if you never use a run back, you can't like have a winning lineup. It's just you're slightly making your path to winning a little bit more likely. And for the reason you said, especially in a team this heavily correlated, like you have the Jags quarterback, tight end, number 1 wide receiver, and running back. So for all of those guys to do well, the Jags have to throw up a ton of points. For the Jags to throw up a ton of points, the most likely way that happens is Tennessee is scoring every time they get the ball as well, in which case you want some of those main Tennessee guys. Like, sure, you could just have a quick 2 touchdowns to Tyler Eifert, a quick bomb to DJ Chark, and then James Robinson runs the rest of the game, and it gets there that way. That way is a lot less likely than just saying, okay, the final score of this game is 45-40, and everyone in the game does well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a solid breakdown. And a lot of people in chat saying run backs are the most unnecessary thing and overused thing in DFS. I guess it depends what you're playing, because you're going to see many, many weeks where the run back works, and you're going to see weeks where it doesn't work and where it isn't necessary. And I think we've done our best to break down and be pretty objective about all of that through 14 weeks. But Adam, I would say when it's a Jag stack, of course I want to run it back with somebody, because the offense in Tennessee is so concentrated between only a few players that why would you not want to try and get a piece of that under the assumption that this game either shoots out or that Tennessee is playing from behind? Like, you don't need to throw darts and try and guess about like a Tampa Bay run back or go with a terrible Jets team and just hope that one of those guys at 3,500 can get you to 10 fantasy points. This is a team that has explosive upside with 3 different players. So I do think it's all relative to what game you're playing, and it's specific to each team. But with this one, I would think with the Titans, you would have wanted something.
Yeah, there's definitely teams where it's like, yeah, they can score a bunch of points and no one guy does well, or they're just not going to score points like the Jets, but they give up points so quickly it doesn't matter. But the Titans aren't, one of those teams. And kind of, to the point of the run backs, I think one of the easier ways to think about it is like going into the game. Let's say you have Corey Davis and Corey Davis and like Curtis Samuel at the same price point with the same projection, just as an example. If you're assuming your lineup does well, meaning the Jags score a lot of points, in games where the Jags score a lot of points, Corey Davis's median projection would go up, while you still don't know anything about the Curtis Samuel game. So that's why you would prefer them, is if you assume your lineup does well, then the projection of the guys on the other team would actually be higher. So it's just a small way to increase the chances of success for your lineup. And it's just something where you want to consistently put yourself in the best position you can to have success. And so it's a small thing, but if you're doing it consistently, it will work out over time, or you would expect it to, because the math behind it supports it.
Okay. And then last thing here, Josh, let's go to I'm always intrigued by the Millie Maker. What do we have? The $500 entry Millie Maker, right? 5,000 entries. Yeah. I'm always intrigued by this one. Let's check that out real quick. And by the way, guys, hit the thumbs up if you haven't done so yet, and help us get to 50K subscribers if you like what we do here and you appreciate the free content. The more subs and interaction and comments and thumbs up and all that stuff that we have, the more YouTube treats us better, and we can keep doing free content. Production value increases. We get great hosts in here and all of that good stuff. So we appreciate all your support in this holiday season, right? All right.
I've got the worst lineup. I've got the worst lineup.
Okay.
Is it mine?
No, it would be friend of the program, Rinpack.
I'll say I bubbled. I knew it wasn't mine.
Rinpack in the ass end. Brady, Brian Hill, DeAndre Washington, Godwin, Justin Jefferson, Chark, Gronk, McLaurin, Saints.
Okay. You have it pulled up. Let me see. He's like ranked top 20 now. He's been
doing really well.
hauling ass, dude. Let's see. Okay, Brady, Godwin, Gronk. The Brian Hill one is strange. DeAndre Washington, Justin Jefferson, DJ Shark, Terry McLaurin. I don't know what to make about Brian Hill here.
Did he like misclick?
Was it?
I mean, I'm sure he didn't make it by hand. I don't know what was happening there.
I'm just curious because, like I just said, he's a really good player.
Yeah, I'm sure he had a reason. I just have no guess at what that reason was.
Because I saw that Gurley was supposed to get the majority of work in that game.
Yeah.
I don't know. And you look at the rest of the lineup, and you could make sense of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be interested to know what the reason was because I'm sure he had one.
What is the winner here? And we'll get out of here with this. Winning line. I don't even know how to pronounce that name. It's just some gibberish.
What's $1 million worth of gibberish?
D. Nedzilski. Ski. I don't know. He had.
That is a good lineup.
Yeah. Very good lineup. And of course, this one was 14 points lower than the Millie Maker winner and the other one, but that's to be expected. Rodgers, Jonathan Taylor, Mike Davis, Devontae Adams, KJ Hamler, Michael Gallup, Travis Kelce, Robert Tonyan, double tight end, Cowboys defense. What do you think about that, Adam?
No run back, kind of interesting, but
much smaller field though too.
Yeah, smaller field, and the Lions, they do have a lot of different routes kind of to score.
See, that's a team I wouldn't really feel any obligation to run it back with. The Detroit Lions would be a perfect example.
Right, and like I used a lot of Hawkinson, a lot of Marvin Jones, but I don't think it was like completely necessary. Yeah, I think it's a good lineup. KJ Hamler was someone that I actually had a decent amount of too. Not that you felt super confident, but correlates with Mike Davis in this lineup. It was a good matchup against the Panthers. The only like weird correlation in the lineup is the Gallup and Cowboys defense, but they're both so cheap. Who really cares? You certainly could have made the case for using like a different 3,800 range guy than Gallup, but not a big deal there. Kelce gives you the top tight end option. Rodgers was obviously a really good play. Jonathan Taylor has been getting more carries, had a good matchup. Like all that stuff looks good. Yeah, I think it's a good lineup. There's nothing like really crazy about it, I don't think.
And he only paid up for one player. That was Devontae Adams, not including Aaron Rodgers.
And Kelce.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, you're right. Obviously paid up for Kelce, which went Robert Tonyan, discount, Gallup, cheap. He went with KJ Hamler, minimum salary, Michael Gallup, 3,800, Robert Tonyan, 42, Cowboys, 2,400. And it allowed him to get in Devontae Adams and Kelce and Taylor, who was also pretty cheap, and Mike Davis. All right. And he had 200 remaining. Oh, Jason says Laz Gets Fit came in 6th. Josh, we got to do that before we got to see the Laz Gets Fit's line. Again, this is the guy, friend of the program, great guy. And we're still going to try and bring him onto the show at some point, where he won a lot of money last year running 2 players against his defense, like crazy roster construction that just so happened to work. So
Gio Bernard.
Okay. So here we go. Let's get Bengals defense. All right, go ahead, Adam. What do you see here?
The best Gio Bernard lineup in this tournament. So that hurts. But yeah, paired Gio with the Bengals defense, which, I think makes sense. That's, a positively correlated pairing. Had Brandon Ayuk, which came through. What was the stack? Carr with Nelson Aguilar and Darren Waller. So went with the full Raiders stack, ran it back with T.Y. Hilton. That looks and Jonathan Taylor. So we got a full like Raiders game stack, which I think that's perfectly fine.
Wow, that's a big stack. Yeah.
Hilton and Taylor, I mean, both very reasonable plays. Got the 2 primary pass catchers from the Raiders. Bernard pivot off of the really popular guys. Lets him pay up for Derrick Henry, which looks good. It's a good lineup.
Yeah. I have no problem. I mean, that's a monster stack for a slate like this. But I've heard a lot of people say too, in the smaller fields, if you do have full out game stacks like this, where you don't need to get everything right, sometimes it makes more sense. But yeah, Hilton popped off. Jonathan Taylor. So he went with a game stack, but not just a full game stack, Adam. He didn't run back 2 wide receivers. He ran back a wide receiver and a running back in that game. And,
I actually like that construction kind of, because I think like intuitively, the first thing people normally do if they're full game stacking like that is use 2 receivers.
Yeah.
But the position that puts you in is that then you're competing with all of the, like if that whole thing hits, you're competing with not only the Carr lineups, but you're competing with the Phillip Rivers lineups. Whereas going 1 running back and 1 wide receiver from the opposing team, like if that running back goes off, it's less likely that the quarterback's going off.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And he does some wild stuff, and he even admits it. He goes, "Hey, I know what I do is not, does not make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but apparently I think he said like he had learned it from someone else. He didn't tell me who it was, but he's won a lot of money. So more power to you.
Really good lineup.
Yeah, more power to you. And this is a good lineup for sure. It's just a shame that happened with Gio, because even a decent game with Gio, if he starts and if he gets those opportunities throughout the game, you're getting like 15 from him. And, he's looking at an even better lineup. But that'll do it for us, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us for this hour. Hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And, of course, stick around later today. We just got shows all the time. And I'm assuming, Adam, let me check here, but you could probably tell me. So Monday, it's the 14th. We have the Live Before Lock NBA show at 5:00, but you're not on that, right? But you will be back with Josh for Live Before Lock for tonight's showdown between the Ravens and the Browns.
Yeah, no basketball show for me today, but we do have a basketball show. And then I'll be back with Josh for the Monday night game.
It's an hour and a half show leading you up to Lock. And Matt Kajeski, myself, and Alex Brown, you know him as AB, former defensive end for the Chicago Bears. Great guy, really fun to do shows with, really knowledgeable. And it's great to have a former player on to really break it down differently than we can.
Also looks nothing like Terrell Suggs.
Nothing like, I know you loved that video.
I was dying.
It was such an insulting video. And then he sent me something that was a gift that said like, me before the vaccine, and it was Adrian Peterson, and then me after the vaccine, and it was Terrell Suggs with his mouth open and the teeth coming down with the gums all protruded. You seen that? Have you seen that meme going around?
Yeah.
I said GIF. Yeah. It's or GIF, whatever. It's a good meme. But anyway, appreciate you guys. And check that out. We just did it. It's the Showdown Strategy Show. And while Josh isn't on the show, I'm assuming his short videos are out. I mentioned them earlier. They're really good stuff, breaking down the simulations, the probabilities, and all of that good stuff. So we have so much for tonight and all of the other slates, preseason basketball as well. So thanks, guys. We'll see you back here soon next time on the Monday Morning Quarterback Show.